Closing time. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in on this Friday. Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. 27th of January. We are ready to go. Exciting to be here. It's always a great day to be alive. Great day to be a Michigan football fan. The big news is that the transfer portal, which has been open for business, for players to jump on in, for people to keep refreshing and watching, that closes down tonight. So, as we have talked about Michigan's roster, they have had the opportunity where they're back. They're doing everything, but they've had the opportunity to get these players who are leaving, and going into the transfer portal after tonight. That's not happening anymore, with the exception of players from IU or the U, which will have an additional 5 days. But I don't know, maybe there'll be a player in there. And then players that are in there, they're still you're able to add on, but no more jumping in. So it is a deadline. And you may be happy about that. And this could be, I think there's going to be something that gets done today. And maybe some of the stuff that's pretty easy that you're looking at and you say, the portal is closing. It's portal time. And how the Michigan War Room looks to, finalize the team, an addition of a player or two, linebacker or two, wide receiver / defensive back, safety or two. Those things are out there. And one thing I have to answer, and I'm not sure I know the answer, is Michigan sitting pretty, or are they scrambling? Is this team cooked? Or are they cooking? When they always hear that, it's somewhere in between. I want more of an answer than somewhere in between. I want to know if what's happening here is good with what they've done in the portal, with the players that they've run back. Is this going to be a formidable team? Is this going to be a playoff team? Or what we're looking at is an adjustment with Whittingham, and that Michigan's going to need a lot of things to fall into place because they just don't have the personnel. I'll get to that. I'll give you my thoughts, and I'll get yours as well if Michigan is cooked or if they're cooking. But tonight, as things have shaken out, there is the Polynesian Bowl in Hawaii, and there is a player that Kyle Whittingham recruited to Utah who committed to the Utes, Salisi Moe. And Moa, Salise Moa. Moa, it rhymes with Noah. Moa is a 4-star safety or wide receiver wherever you need him, wherever you want him, wherever he wants to go, maybe. He's coveted, and he is making his decision tonight. And, automatically, that sounds pretty good for Michigan. And I would agree with that. I would agree it sounds pretty good for Michigan and Salisi Moa. His brother, Aisia is a linebacker who is also in the portal. He went to Michigan State last year, a linebacker. I don't know about a package deal of brotherly love, but let's just all make our predictions. I think that Michigan's going to get Salisi, and I think they're going to get Aisia as well. And you're going to get Moa brothers coming into Michigan. Now, that's what it looks like. That's where the writing is on the wall. That's what everybody thinks going to happen, but we're going to have to let it. We're going to have to actually see it. Those are the predictions. That's what everybody thinks. But let's see, and that'll be good news for the Wolverines. Now, where they're sitting with their numbers and how many more players they're getting down, where they know that they need help on the defensive line, front seven, linebackers, and not knowing the exact numbers, but you're looking at it. But these could be two that could end up. I don't think they're done just with the Moa brothers. I think there's still that linebacker. And I know people we want a splashy. Well, for recruiting fans and regular fans, splashy means something different. You get a guy that played in the Big 12 and started. That seems pretty solid to me. I'm not actually speaking specifically about anybody. You get a linebacker that played at Cal that had some pretty good numbers, and people tripping thinking that this is the greatest player ever, and they're still in on somebody like that, or a DB out of Cal. Maybe this guy's a fallback, maybe he's not, but I believe that there are going to be at least two and as many as 4 players that will be finalized before tonight. And then, then you get a wild card. I would say then there's going to be another player or two. I'll put 2 wild cards out there. Not saying that that's going to happen. That's why it's a wild card. But I would say 2 to 4 players today, and then an additional 2. So up to still another half dozen players could be coming in. Now you could be like, I've been looking at the numbers. All right. Okay. You've been looking at the numbers, and maybe that's not feasible. And I'll concede, to your expertise in going through the roster and adding it up. I will be adding it up myself. There's still, I was trying to do it yesterday, and then I saw the news that Rod Moore was coming back. And, to me, that's great news. Of course, it's going to hinge on how healthy it is. That's what happens with everyone. And, you sit around and say, oh, he should be okay. I don't know if he's going to be okay, but what I say about Rod Moore is that if he is okay, that's the after Underwood and Marsh, to me, that's the biggest portal move that they've made. Now, he wasn't in the portal, so I guess biggest move, if healthy. Do I have to put all of these different things and put different labels on them? But I'll do it. If healthy, Rod Moore is one of the top moves that Whittingham has been able to make. So, I don't know. You can't really disagree with me on that. I mean, you could try. But if you disagreed, you'd be like, well, that's damaged goods, or, you're going to speculate on his health. I'm speculating on it myself. So that's why I said, if healthy, he's one of the best moves. So you got the Moas. Rod Moore back yesterday. Great news. And then you've got a corner from Cal. You've got different linebackers that are popping up here and there. Oh, there's one from North Carolina. What about this guy in the portal? Yeah, they've got a list, and what they're doing and what kind of money they have. I think we can safely say, out of those half dozen players that we're talking about, linebacker is going to be 1 or 2 of them, because the one of the linebackers is Moa's brother, but Aisia Moa, I'm not penciling in as a starter for Michigan. I'm penciling him in as somebody who would compete in some depth, but that's as far as I'm going to go in terms of the depth chart and where I'm at with it. So there's the latest with Salisi Moa and his brother Aisia. As we wait for the Polynesian Bowl tonight, we will do that. And people, whether you're going to watch the Polynesian Bowl or not, that's up to you, but checking in to see what's going to happen here. So now, we go back to the portal closing. I've hit that about how they can still come up with players after midnight tonight, but players just can't go in there. So the players that are on Michigan's team, you keep seeing we're running it back, or the LFG. Let's go. Let's freaking go. They're putting those on there. I like those. Oh, here we go. LFG Blue. Here's a new one. Yeah, you put this one on. I saw Mason Curtis. I actually thought he was already coming back, and then there's a big announcement like, oh, hey, here's his card. Here he is showing up on social media. He's LFG in it blue. Oh, okay, good. Good, because I'm glad he's back. I'm going to take some of this feedback, and then I'm going to get into this subjective question on how Michigan is doing, how the roster is shaping up, our expectations for this team. I know we're not into February, but this phase is it's not all the way done. So yeah, we will have another round of thoughts on what Whittingham and company have been able to do. But this is pretty close to at least getting a feel. I mean, how much are you really going to change your mind on another player, 2 or 3 or 4, 6, maybe? There you go. Milk Wizard. He's not sure how to feel about our strategy of bringing in 1 million 3-star linebackers. Makes me think we won't be getting a good one. Yeah, that's a little bit towards are they cooked or cooking? Troy Bowles looks like he's a pretty good linebacker. He played, and so I don't know about penciling him in, but serviceable linebacker. You probably don't like to hear that. Chase Taylor and Nathaniel Owasu Boateng. I mean, those guys. And I know everybody hates the previous staff, and I think you do have to take everything that they said with a grain of salt, but they all love those guys. And when we saw them actually get out there and play in Boateng, pretty highly thought of coming out of high school. Could we say one? I would think one of those guys, if not both, are going to be stars. But I'll say right now that I think one of them is going to be a star. And if I had to guess, I would pick the NOB. But I think that there's a chance that, there's 2 of them. So then now you're talking about all the other guys that you're bringing in are going to be competing or depth spots. But, it's not a strong. I'm not sitting here trying to sell anyone. I'm not trying to sell anyone anything right now. But I'm not trying to sell you that, that Michigan's linebackers are the best in the Big Ten or something. RP is talking about the retention of the players, and Michigan is doing a good job there. Wonder what time Moa is announcing. He's doing it during the Polynesian game, which starts at 8:00. So I don't know if the first thing they do is go down to the sideline. I'm sure they have an idea. We've seen different ways that they go about it. So 8:00 is the time the game starts. Bill is talking about, does it close at a certain time? 12:00, I think, 11:59. Predicting Moas and 1 defensive lineman and 1 linebacker. So that's 2, 3, 4. So Bill's in line with how I'm thinking. MGB 1324 is talking about Michigan's defensive coordinator, and he's already putting a plea out. Please mix in lots of zone when we play Ohio State. We will get destroyed if we run heavy man against them. I guess it's never too early to start thinking about what kind of defense the new coordinator is going to play against Ohio State. So there you go. Let's see here from Stronken. Stronken is putting something out there that I have no idea about. So I don't know where this comes from. He is talking about Lamar Morgan doing what Sharon Moore was doing. So that's the first that I've heard of that. I don't know where that comes from. So that's the first I'm hearing of it. So there you go with that. Yes, Rod Moore would be a great comeback. Let's see, more from Stronken. He says, it was also unprofessional to show up at a bowl game without team gear on. May their future prospective employer set them straight on attire expectations. Yeah, I don't remember seeing Morgan on the sideline, or maybe he was in a press conference without Michigan gear on. I would have criticized him for that. I did criticize Wink. That was trashy for Wink, to sacrilegious to do what Wink did. So you want to give Wink a big FU for doing that? I agree. And Wink, you get that he's mad that they're being all pushed out because of what Moore did. So he's giving a big FU. Well, you want to give a big FU to the fans? That's what you did, Wink. And everybody should agree with that part. LFG Blue is saying, don't forget schools have up to 48 hours to submit players into the portal. So tonight is the last night to enter, but schools might announce 2 days from now. I wasn't aware of that little blookie, that your little administrative thing that you're talking about, but now that you say it, maybe I should be aware of that. Probably should be. And, I think you're right about that. So while the deadline is tonight, with some things and players that we might not think, it's like the trading deadline. It's like everybody's like, all right, 4:00, deadline's over. And then everybody's like, well, wait a second, you can still get something going. So this news sounds correct, and if true, is a big deal. I hear somebody else saying that's right. There's a 48-hour window afterwards, so 2 more days. Even though it's closed tonight, there you go, an extra 48 hours. So we can come back on Monday and say, okay, now it's closed, and see what's happening. So this is the part that I'm interested in hearing from all of you wise Michigan fans that are watching this show right now. It's how Michigan looks to next year. How this team looks. And so you had to first wrap your head around, well, what do I think of Whittingham and all these Utah coaches coming in, and mostly Whittingham, 66-year-old coach, just going to go hang out with his grandkids. And then, lo and behold, one of the best jobs in the world opening up for a college football coach. Boom. What great timing for Whit. Awesome. Not so great to be Utah. I'm thinking about, we're going to send Whit out. We're going to kind of guide him out the door. It's a new era. He's been around for 21 years old. Oops, he's going to Michigan. Now he's going to take everybody, including the players and all the coaches that he likes. Ouch. But yeah, that's an ouch for them. Whittingham's a good coach. The players. Here's the thing, and it was last week that I was looking at Whittingham and Michigan's ability to bring back a lot of their key players, not Cole Sullivan, a couple others that I would have liked to see them bring back, but, they lost some. So I was encouraged about Michigan. And then it has stuck with me since not this past Wednesday, the Wednesday before, is that Michigan, when it comes to the rankings in the portal, they're doing terrible. Now, they've got good players coming back. but they got 16 in right now and 27 out. And On Three has looked at it, and they have Michigan at, where are they, 68? 68. Now, rankings are subjective, and I think the first inclination is to be like, these guys are stupid. Rankings don't mean anything. And so, all right, you can say that. They mean a little bit. They don't mean everything, but they do mean something. And whether you're going to say a little bit or a lot. So the teams that are spending, and you look over there and say, all right, Indiana's number one, Texas Tech, Texas A&M. Those are schools that are known NIL, are paying top dollars. And so, you can't just say, oh, well, Indiana, what the hell do they know? Well, they're in the title game, and they get the number one ranked portal class. Sig, what he's doing, if I was a Hoosier fan, I'd be sitting back and saying, this is a dream. Not only are we in the Natty, but Sig's got the number one portal class. I'd be feeling pretty good if I was a Hoosier fan. And we know Texas Tech is spending money on it. We know Texas A&M, even before it was legal to spend money, they were spending money left and right. So they're all in there. And then you look at some of the Big Ten teams that are, UCLA's in the top 10. Wisconsin is in the top 20. Oregon's in the top 20. Oregon's always there. But the ones that at least make you think, okay, maybe it's not everything about the portal rankings. Ohio State, I would have, before I looked, if you would have said, okay, who's in the top 10? I'd say, Ohio State, they're going to spend money. Well, they're not ranked 38th in the portal rankings. Bama's at 50. USC's in the 50s. Georgia's in the 60s. And then there's Michigan, almost at 70. Doesn't mean everything. So you want to feel good. But then you say, well, what about these portal rankings? Well, they were able to retain a lot of their players. Same with the recruiting class. But that doesn't make you feel great. How do you feel great about having the 68th ranked portal? Now, I'm asking you because maybe there's another service that has Michigan like in the top 10, and you're like, these guys know what they're doing. That would be something where you'd say that would make you feel better. The part that I'm at least telling myself is that it's not over. Maybe in the final analysis, they at least get themselves into the top 50 or top 40 when it comes down to those rankings. And again, that doesn't mean that they're going to end up finishing 500 next year. And here's what I would guess before I look at what everybody else is saying, because I'm sure there's other people that have tried to cushion this or, come up with good reasons, or either one. Keeping key players in the two deep, that was retaining your best players. That is what was job one. And they did they do a good job retaining their star players and good players? Yes. So, that's the thing. And you look at the offensive line, you could see an offensive line. You could see the quarterbacks. You see the running backs. You actually see the entire offense, Marsh out there. And you look at the receivers and you say, all right, and, they've got some promising ones, recruit that they're bringing in. And so the offense looks pretty good. On the defensive side, it looks pretty thin, but that they're still throwing things at it. So maybe you could feel a little bit better about that. Rod Moore is, I don't know how many times am I going to say, if Rod Moore is ready to go from game one, that'll be big. That will be big. And some of these guys that were top players that they recruited, the Dom Nichols, who's already shown a little bit that he could be a good player. I already mentioned NOB and Chase Taylor. Those are good players. and they were able to keep them. Nate Marshall is a hell of a football player. Coming out of high school, there weren't many that were even thought of that were any better than him, and he's coming back. So that's a big time player. Shamari Earls, who passed every test, the eye test, the rankings test. Well, I say every test except the one last year where he wasn't out there a whole hell of a lot. The other corners, some of them that have bolted, were out there before him. But that's what I'm thinking, that Michigan has, that they've pieced together what looks like can be a pretty good team despite this portal ranking that they have received right now that is at 68. Okay, so I don't know if that gets you, if that's making you feel worse or better, or how you feel about it, but that's the kind of feedback that I'm looking for. And if you're just joining us, let me reset that. Oh, Michigan's got 16 players that came in via the transfer portal, and they got 27 on the way out. On3 looks at an industry ranking, so they're looking at all of the different services out there, recruiting and everything. They put it all together. They've got the scores, and they have Michigan as the 68th ranked portal class. Nothing to do handsprings about it. If Michigan was in the top 10, we'd be sitting around saying, "Oh man, the champion circle and Ward and all the billionaires and Ellison and Jolin. Let's praise them all because they have thrown the money out, and they have made this where Michigan is definitely a top 10 team." You can't say that. But again, so you would say that, but you can't. So now you have to say that it was more about bringing the players in and then just adding some pieces here, unless I'm missing something, and that very well could happen. And that's why at this point right now, we do go to the feedback to see what everyone is saying. And there was one thing something popped up when I was out today, and it said, teams need to you're either overspending or you're letting guys go. I find that to be, just thinking about it, true. When you have free agency in the pros and you're a team, you're overspending. You have to, you're not getting a guy like, whoa, we're getting a great deal in free agency. No, you're overspending for a guy in free agency, and all of these guys are free agents. So but there's no cap. That's the good news. I guess it's a good news if you're able to get some players. So let's see what people think. RP has not been looking at the numbers. Let's see if anybody else is. RP, though, says he's asking a question. Do I think the offense will take a step and maybe the defense will take a step back? I think that's fair talking right now. I expect Underwood to play twice as good as he did last year. So, yeah, I'm thinking the offense, with Bryce Underwood being twice the player that he was last year, is going to be a lot better. I like the running backs. I know about the running backs. I like the line. I like Marsh. I like those tight ends that they brought back. Mr. IU says players from Indiana and Miami can enter from the 24. So some more good players. Yeah. I missed that part. Ann Arbor fan is also talking about the academic calendar, mentioning January 27th being the last day to add drops, so they could still add players after the portal closes. Yeah, that's right. And I think bringing up January 27th is another drop dead date, because today is when the portal closes, but then, another 48 hours. So actually today it closes, but then on the 18th, it's officially closed, but you could still add players, but keep in mind the 27th because that's when the academic calendar where you have add drop. Do I have that right? It can be a little confusing. I mean, you have to follow this pretty close. The New Life says, it looks to me like Ohio State is divesting of expensive players. Retaining them seems unimportant. I think Ohio is pivoting to the Indiana model. The Indiana model is what? Get a transfer portal quarterback. The only problem when you're talking about divesting or following the Indiana model, Indiana's number one in the portal. They've been spending through the nose. You don't get number one in the portal just because, you want to go play with SIG. That means they're paying top dollar in the transfer portal for the players that they got. And, good job. But this part doesn't make sense to me. But, maybe rephrase it. Maybe I'm just missing something. Here we go. Ann Arbor fan 71 says Michigan has a number 20 ranking on 24/7. Good. The only issue that I think that I have with that is On3 is doing an industry one, so they're using that 20, and they still, with everybody, have Michigan way back at 68. So, but that can make you feel better. What was confusing to me is that On3 had their portal ranking, and then I looked at the overall class ranking, and I was like, well, they haven't moved it because Michigan's at 12, but they do have the players that jump to other schools in the portal. Those guys are gone, and they have had the players that are now in, and they have them listed in the recruiting class. And so does Michigan really have the number 12 incoming class? But, and then the transfer portal is just specifically, set there. It's just a combination for the recruiting class. So I don't know. Like I said, that confused me. But, many of you just live and breathe on, this stuff and might know a little bit more. Need more billionaires. We will certainly move up once the Moa brothers come in. Yeah. This team only needs a few pieces. He's not worried about the portal rankings. This is from Sam. Yeah, Sam, there you go. Not worried about the portal rankings. Not worried about the 27 guys. And I get that. I'm not mocking you or doing anything. I looked at the 27 guys. Sure. I wanted Dotson to stay around, Jaden Standers to stay around. Sure. Those are the guys that I wanted. Ty Haywood, for instance, but I wanted him to compete and be a, starting guard or tackle for Michigan, whether it would be this year or in the future. Great depth, but kind of the same thing with Strayhorn. But maybe that's the adjustment. I'm looking more thinking, this is a thin team. They don't have great depth. What team's going to have great depth? NFM says we're approaching 40 mil on this roster. If not, we're already there. We kept our good players. We didn't get a lot in the portal. That's why we're 68. They've spent, let me digest it. They've spent the money. So they spend 20, or you got to spend 20, but then half of that's going to football, maybe a little bit more. So just football, they've spent up and over from that 20 that you have to spend, that they're probably only getting 10 towards football. So an additional 30, which is that make it competitive with the top 25, with the top 10, with the top 5 teams in college football? I don't know that. When people are talking money and they're talking in absolutes, it makes me wonder. I know that can be what I know there's a lot of people that want to hear, hey, this is what the salaries are. This is the money that's being spent. I just say this, you might be right. And whoever you're getting the information from, it might just be you. You might know someone that's feeding you the information directly, and you might be right on top of it, which is, if that's the case, that's great. You may be listening or reading from one of the Michigan experts. And I don't know. I don't know who the expert is. But I'd like to talk to that expert and say, why are you talking in so much? What do you think you know about 40 mil? Who told you that? Why would your source tell you that? Make you feel good? I don't know. I've heard. I've heard, this is from Ann Arbor fan, that Michigan is likely to land Ernest Nunley, a cornerback who was committed to Cal. Yeah, I've got Nunley on my list. Another corner. Salisi, and which sounds a lot like Khaleesi, but no, Salisi Moa and his brother Aisa. Wait, Aisia and Salisi Moa. And yeah, Nunley. So those are three. If you're looking for the next three before midnight, with an addition of a linebacker in there, coming from somewhere, I would, like I was saying earlier, 4 today seems likely. And then an additional 2, maybe over the weekend with the 48 hours and then all the way up to the 27th. I don't know what the 105 number is. I don't even know if they have to stay at the 105 number. If you're watching this saying, you need to be schooled a little bit more on the exact roster numbers and the rules of the game. But, I would say you might be right about that. It seems like they change an awful lot. Try to defend myself. You either take the defense or not. The defense gets better and consistent. Why would you say that? Why would you say they get better? Is Michigan's defense better? Are they better at defensive tackle? Are they better at the edge? I don't think they're better at either of those spots. Just looking at it, I don't think they're better at linebacker. So are they better at corner? They're the same at corner. Are they better at safety if Rod Moore comes back? So they're the same in the defensive backfield, but they're not the same in the front seven. So I don't know. And the depth's not better. So I'm not sure if it gets better and consistent. They really need Nate Marshall to be the great player that they thought he was coming out of high school. They really need Chase Taylor and NOB to be the great players that they thought they were going to be coming out of high school. They really need Trey Pierce and Eno Etta, who I'm a big fan of, to be the kind of players that they thought and develop, coming out of high school. But I'm not ready to say the defense gets better and consistent. Maybe you meant, John, I'm sorry. I'm going to take a guess. I think you meant to say the defense needs to get better and consistent. What would have made this portal a top 10? What would have made it a top 25? I would say better tackles, better edge rushers, better linebackers, top corners, top wideouts. That's what I would say. That's what I would look at. Maybe the 2 long snappers dropped it down a little bit. I don't know. Here is Let's Go Blue, who's telling us all not to forget Witt and company have been doing amazing with half the talent. I'm going to say he's going to have our mid-tier players playing great. I'm not counting out our defense as it sits. I'm not counting out the defense. I'm not counting anything. I'm not counting Witt out that he's going to coach them up. But that's where we're at. You got to coach them up. I'm not down necessarily. I'm asking because there are going to be some people that are down. Saying, why are Michigan fans jumping around and acting like they're going to the college football playoffs last year when they got a top 70 recruit portal class and they lost 27 players. Like, I just dropped a pair of glasses, had another pair right here. Sam asking some questions. I probably don't know the answer to. That January 27th date would be for early enrollees. Players in the portal could hang on until summer camp to make a destination decision. Let me think about that. Well, you got to get in for spring ball. So you're talking about coming in, in the summer. You want to get, I don't know. And when you're transferring to Michigan already, you might know this, Sam, has a very stringent, say difficult, maybe it has, I don't know about the admissions and academics, but I do know that when it comes to the admissions and the transfer credits, thinking about being able to get a guy that doesn't get in for the winter in the 27th date, and you're talking about is going to be able to come in the summer. I would say that's probably unlikely because of Michigan's transfer credits and admissions. But again, you start going down that hole and people start talking, and look, you might be, you kind of almost have to sound like an expert because you have to know all that particular stuff to go through it. But admissions and how much money they're spending, you get a little of this, and a little of that. Michigan Go Blue is saying that when you look at it, we only lost 7 key players. The other players were either not going to play or play limited roles. So that's how to look at it. 7 key players and then the depth. But everybody's losing their depth, right? Indiana doesn't invest in recruits. They put the most into the portal. That's why they are the top in the portal class. Yep, I agree with that. SIG is paying for the players who have showed they can play versus $5 million for a freshman. Indiana's model seems to value production over potential. Not Ripstars thinking hot wings. I've got some Rip. Here we go. He likes garlic parm and habanero. I like habanero too. Woo! Habanero and blue cheese. I mean, you're ready for game action with habanero in the left hand and blue cheese in the right. You are ready for a great weekend. Oh, I was going to make a point that I have some. My wife brought a package home from the grocery store yesterday that had hot wings in a package. And I'm interested. She doesn't usually just buy things, just kind of willy-nilly buy them. She usually researches it a little bit. So somebody must have told her that these frozen, already hot wings are pretty good. Let's be honest. At first you think, oh, frozen, but you get an air fryer and some hot wings, and you're doing pretty good. Not a bad idea. Let's get Elon going for Michigan. Here's a comparison. If I compare the overall 26 class with the incoming freshmen and portal players, Michigan is number 12 in the nation. Well, this is where I go back. So the overall 26 class, you have the freshmen, and that is a combination. So being number 68 really doesn't matter. Number 12 overall, that is combining. And when I looked at it, what you're saying is true. What confused me is I'm looking, it doesn't say, hey, these are combined. At least it didn't say that, but it does have the players ranked. But they're not freshmen. But they're calling it the 26 class. So that confused me a little bit. Maybe I'll have to send a message to Mr. Terry, who sends me messages. Not just me, but I see a lot of messages from Shannon Terry. Maybe I'll tell Shannon Terry, hey, can you clear that up a little bit? So if that's the case, and that's what I was saying, that's what it looks like. Focus more on Michigan being overall number 12 with the combination incoming freshman and portal class combined than just saying that they're number 68. The confusing part is Michigan was number 12 before the portal started. But yeah, they lost some recruits, and so then you're just throwing those guys in there. So, hey, they're number 12. It's a huge disparity, at least if you were sitting around just wanting to either feel good or not feel so good about Michigan. You could say, hey, with everything that went on and all, Michigan's sitting there damn near top 10 in a combination transfer portal and incoming freshmen. What a great job. Or you could say, how are they just in the top 70 when they lost 27 players? Confusing to me, but I mean, everybody else, no, it's get with the program. Hadley is talking about basketball. I like talking about basketball, Hadley, so you've come to the right place. He says, Michigan will play 3 of their next 4 at home, Indiana, Nebraska, and MU. I think anything less than a 3-1 record will not fly. Well, I thought that they would lose one of these games out on the West Coast, but after watching them beat Washington on Wednesday night and now looking at Oregon, Oregon's top 2 scorers are doubtful for this game coming up tomorrow. Oregon's only won 1 game in the Big Ten this year, and they have a losing record. So I think Michigan should beat Oregon now. So I think they should beat Oregon. They've got Indiana coming up at home on Tuesday. I think they should win that one. They have Ohio State coming up a week from today on Trey Burke night. I think Michigan should win that one. So now we've got Nebraska and Michigan State. A split with Nebraska at home and Michigan State on the road. As much as I was going to say, as much as I would like to see, it's not as much as I would like. I would like to see Michigan beat Michigan State, just like everyone else. But if we are playing, if you want to play the scheduled game, Hadley, I'll play it. I think splitting those games. So the rest of this month, I think yes. Anything less than 1, 2, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. Anything less than 4-1 is not going to fly. It's going to open up some consternation, whatever we're going to do there. Indiana's got some, the New Life has some Indiana rumors. He says Mendoza may enter Alberto may enter the portal because Indiana is bringing in Josh Hoover from TCU. Indiana has acquired 4 4-stars in the portal, 17 total. Yeah, well, whatever SIG wants to do, if I'm an Indiana fan at the quarterback position, I'm going to be okay with. Sam looking at the On3 criteria to judge the rankings. He says one among them is players out, so the loss of Sullivan and Haynes brings that rating factor down. All right. I believe you. Thanks for the information. That's what I want, information. Michigan Go Blue 1324 is giving some credit to Moore. He says, one thing I'll give credit to Moore on is that he was an incredible recruiter. We got spoiled with how much talent we had on defense. Yeah, I don't know about giving Moore credit for anything when you're deceitful and you're a lying SOB. It's you can't really give. You can say, hey, I hope you are able to find your way in life, something like that. But anything with the football program or what he did, I hate that he was a good recruiter because he always talked about the family values and how much the kid. It's a certain it's a certain way Michigan recruits. They're not just taking anybody. And his lips were moving. What a liar about all of that. I don't know. So I'm not really in the mood to think about one good thing that Moore did. He's an effing liar. I didn't care about those kids. Seemingly, he cared about one thing. This is an odd way to follow up that particular. Talking about Moore. Yeah, the transfer portal. It has been like I remember going to Cedar Point as a youngster. You wait in line and then you get on for that roller coaster and it's ticking you up and then you go flying down. You're screaming. You can't. And then it's happening again. You're whipping around the side and you just can't get enough. Woo! And then it stops and your heart's beating and everything else. And what do? Let's go again. And the transfer portal is like Cedar Point with no lines. You just ride the roller coaster and then it stops. And then they're just like, hey, you want to go again? You're like, let's go. There's no wait in line. Just keep it going. Corkscrew. Let's go. Yeah. It's fun. Do I like goat cheese? Yes, I do. I love feta cheese. Big fan of feta cheese. I had some feta cheese for breakfast. Not just feta cheese, but I had some. You got to know where you're going, though. So you get some feta cheese that can taste a little plasticky. That cheap feta cheese, I think. You would think that I would be more of, since I have a pair of goats out in the yard right now, but we don't milk them. We don't use them to get goat cheese, goat milk, goat cheese. We don't do that. They're just pets. They just walk around, and not in the winter. They basically hibernate. They come out for a little bit, kick their heels up. But this kind of weather, they're just like, no thanks. Give us a bunch of hay. Give us some grain. And we're fine. He just gave himself and all of his staff fat extensions. I don't know what you're talking about. My wife loves goat milk and goat cheese. Well, I like your wife. It's taste in milk and cheese. I've never had goat milk myself. Goat cheese, I have some in the fridge right now. Let's go. Keep it going. Yeah, you don't know. Guys saying this, guys saying that. Chris is saying, look, the dude has had 3 weeks to learn the players, negotiate NIL, retrain players, bring players in, and keep the recruiting class. Overall, A-. Need a linebacker. Yeah, I don't mind that. I went in not really knowing. The thing that stuck out is that their poor rating from On3 in the recruiting portal. And when I started thinking, well, no, Michigan's keeping their good players, and it's about player retention and picking and choosing, just filling some holes, and look at their recruiting class. They're doing great. That sounded, it could all be true. Like, well, that could all be true. It just sounds a little, that's just Homer-ish. It just sounds like, is that really what I'm selling? Michigan's good. Michigan's done a really good job here. Yeah, if it's number 12, then it's great considering everything that's going on. Old DVR is saying Michigan should win every time they play. That's pretty much been the case my entire life until Rodriguez took over. And then it was like, oh, there were a couple of years. Not only should they win every game, it felt like they had an opportunity that the teams that they field and put out on the field every year when I was growing up, and it never happened except the once, that they could go undefeated. And that they could be playing for the national championship, certainly playing for the Big Ten championship every year. That was the great thing until Rodriguez came around, and then a couple of years with Hoke. And then it took so long to get back out of it. Harbaugh was the best guy for the job. Everybody, self-included, at the end was, you weren't too harsh saying, all right, this isn't working and that's not working. You got to go somewhere else. And then it did work. Are they back to where they should win every time they play? That Oklahoma game's at home next year. Should they win that game? Yes. Jester's jinx. 106 members on the roster, and we need to be under 105. Also, 70% of the transfer portal players were encouraged to be there via Snowden, Snowden's dad, who owns an agency. So, yeah, you need to be under 105. Remember in the years past, that was a 105. It wasn't just a suggestion, but from some of the players, it was a grandfather type number that you could go over. Is it a hard 105 now? Or can you still, are some of these players, I don't know the answer. There's another thing I don't know the answer to, if that's a hard 105 or not. And again, if you're like, you should know that, I'd say, you're probably right. I should know that. This is, I don't know if this is true or not, but hey, I don't know. Here's some emojis from Anthony. It looks like, is that the Cookie Monster? I guess I can't make out the other two. So that's it. TikTok love. I saw Yaks playing 2K at almost midnight Oregon time. He said his calf is feeling like buns. Keep playing video games and rest that calf, Yaks. We need you fully healthy by March. All right, so here's a couple questions that I would have. I know that his calf has not been good, but if your calf is feeling like buns, is that good? I'm not familiar with. Hey, I'm feeling like buns. Is that good? You're giving him some TikTok love. All right. Oh, it's a TikTok live. Somebody help out. Talent without culture is pointless. Yeah. Well, right now, the whole thing about culture and what happened last year, I don't know. Did Michigan have a good culture last year, or was it a terrible culture? Or it was a good culture, but what Moore did was just all on him, so it didn't affect the culture. That's the thing when you start talking about culture. Now all those guys are gone, so now you're resetting the culture. Indiana has a great, you're telling me that U has good culture. Because I never thought that the U necessarily, they get great talent. They pay, whether it was legal, not legal. They're paying. You can go out on a yacht. You do anything you want. I never felt like that was great culture, but they're in the Natty. So do they have great culture? So all this coming back where, talk about Michigan, like, oh, they had great culture. Well, I don't know. Do they have great culture? Did they have, or do they have, will they have great culture? I don't know. Let's see. I don't know. Couple more here. TBR says you have to fit the culture at Michigan, but ironically, he didn't. So what is that like? You're bringing in. Oh, there's probably a lot of great examples, ones that I don't want to use. Because I just thought of a few. Not the best. Yeah, talking about Moore, Sharon Moore right now, I don't really have any great things to say about Moore. Bill wants to give Witt an A. One of the most complete train wrecks in college football history, and now it's back on the tracks. Time to resume Big Ten dominance. An A from Bill Wood. He'll be given an A according to Ripstar if he develops the stars and with what he has. Oh, wait. Let me get some people who are answering my question about buns. That wasn't it. Yak says his calf feels like buns. And Leet says, is that what you're saying? Bro. What are you saying, Leet? Okay, thank you, Jesters. Buns is ass. No, but I know, like if you said somebody has nice buns, you're talking about, but that's, now you can use it. If I slammed my finger in the door today and I sat here and I said, my finger's feeling buns. Or if I was watching the new Euphoria trailer and I saw Sydney Sweeney sitting up on a hobble horse and I said, hey, she's got nice buns. Are we talking about the same thing, or what are we even talking about here? We're talking about Yax's calf. I don't know why I'm yelling like that. Oh. Yeah, so cheeks, I've been around enough where I understand that. So if Yax's calf is, if it was about the same as cheeks, then that is negative. His calf is not doing good. Sit him out of tomorrow's game if his calf is feeling cheeks or buns. Straight buns. Not sure I like all the new name. You'd say, well, you don't know what buns are. Well, look, I'm over 50. Jeff says it will be the most exciting football since Denard Robinson shoestring. What are you talking about? You do know, you do know that Michigan just won 3 straight Big Ten titles, beat Ohio State 4 times in a row, and won a natty. So that was pretty exciting stuff. So what's this yup? And it will be the most. What football are you talking about? Hadley says, don't forget about Michigan at Minnesota tonight and tomorrow. Yeah, 8 o'clock tonight, Hadley. I'm going to be watching that game. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock. They're on the Big Ten Network Plus, Big Ten Plus. So you've got that. Or you can listen to it on where I do. The Varsity app works pretty good. You can hear Al Randall on the call. And then Mark Down, you're going to have a special guest when Michigan goes to Wisconsin as the color analyst there. Leet. Okay. Okay. I don't know. This show was not quite, I'm not going to say it was buns or cheeks. It was informative. All right, we'll take a Final Four. Final Four if we can do it. Jeff Dixon says this year's football, our offense will be explosive. Yeah, I'm expecting the offense to look a lot like it has over the last 5 years. I think they're going to be a predominantly run team. I think that Bryce Underwood's going to run the ball a lot more himself. But I do expect, with all of this transfer portal, this, site says this, cheeks, buns, they are going to go as far as Underwood's maturity and progression will take them. And I'm expecting him to be twice as good as he was last year. So I am expecting a lot from Michigan. Part of the Final Four is some Pistons talk. What a comeback last night, 29-10, baby. Love Tobias. Tobias played well last night. He looked good. Michigan or the Pistons, man, they were pretty much down the whole time. I thought for sure that we were going to get a fight. Dylan Brooks, I want to fight him. I knew that Holland and Dylan Brooks, that was very predictable that there was going to be, something that was going to go down there. But the Pistons are pretty awesome. And yeah, Tobias playing great. You watch him, you see all the trade in there, and Tobias is included in all of them. And then when you see Tobias play like last night, you're like, you really want to get rid of Tobias? Yeah, they do have to. And you know who else? Ivy. I'm watching Ivy, and I'm thinking, because Ivy's involved in most of this. It's a great spot to be in because they've got the guys they're even probably going to trade Tobias, a guy like Ivy, the guys that get mentioned all the time, and they're playing really well. So you want that to happen. And if I'm another team, I want Ivy, but I watch Ivy and I'm thinking, man, I like him. I like Holland. I like Ivy. I like Tobias. But if I can parlay those three into a star, then I'm doing it. Yeah, let's recap we don't need Chat GPT to do this. What is being said in this show? Well, Michigan is looking towards tonight in the Polynesian Bowl, and all Michigan fans have a reason to watch because Salisi Moa is making an announcement on where he's going to attend school. So Michigan fans are very excited about that because they could get him and his brother. Elsewhere, the portal class and Michigan's ranking with on 3, there's a big disparity. Does this mean that Michigan's fine? How are Michigan fans looking at it? Answer, it's not quite buns, but it's not the greatest thing of all time. It's a lot of it is going to depend on Whittingham and how good his coordinators are and his staff. A lot of uncertainty with that. I think anybody that's talking in absolutes is, just, guessing right now. I know we're all guessing, but a little too much guessing right now on that. And then finally, Yax, who was on TikTok Live, was asked about his calf, and he didn't have great things to say about it. So to me, I would like Dusty and company to, and if he was a game time decision at Penn State, they don't need him against Oregon. Sit him down. Sit him down for tonight's game. Polynesian Bowl and Michigan hockey. I'll be watching that tomorrow. Then Michigan basketball, 4 o'clock. Got 2 playoff games, another Michigan hockey game, and then Sunday, a pair of football games to watch. I'm in on those. You get to this time of year, and there's a lot of great times. I would say that when it comes down to the NFL season, that this is my favorite weekend, the divisional round. 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. Now, wild card weekend was great, and it was the best wild card weekend that I can ever remember. And we usually just do a lot of complaining about, the 7th seed, got a lot of nasty games, blah, blah. All tremendous. You want to make a case that the Pats game wasn't that great? All right. But all the other ones were. And so can they even get close to matching what happened last week, this week? I'm intrigued. Michigan hoops, Michigan hockey. I'm all in. Enjoy it. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. We'd love to see you guys over there. And go to on3.com. You get the Maize and Blue Review. You get On3. You get Rivals. You get all of that together. And then you're constantly talking about Michigan over on the Den. And that's where I am, talking with Michigan fans. So we'd love to see you over there. Go to on3.com. We will talk with you tomorrow after the Michigan basketball game. Which is out in Eugene against Oregon. Till then,